guys? Troll Pal CHH here today. Today we're talking about unequivocally in the top 5 of my favorite movies ever made, hands down. And I am gonna say I think this is the best 4K I've ever seen. I am so happy to review this finally on 4K. I'm talking about Jean-Claude Van Damme's Bloodsport, his 1988 breakthrough film, and in my opinion, the greatest martial arts film ever made. Now, the goal of this video is to not only describe to you how nice this release is, but also to get one person, at least one person, to watch this movie. Bloodsport is a film that was so incredibly important to me in my life. When I found this film, just to get a little bit, nuanced, I was a big Stallone fan growing up, and I always was a ride or die for him. And when it came to martial arts stuff, I never really was highly into it. I wasn't against it. I did enjoy movies like that, but it would be on and off stuff. But as a kid, I always loved Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. And so right around this time, I went through this horrible breakup where I was crushed. Something made me want to reach out to just try to feel something different or try to find something new to scratch the itch of feeling again. I was pretty gutted inside. And sure enough, I was like, I want to see something from Jean-Claude Van Damme. Something about him is calling my name. Like, I need to see some of his films. I did a little research and found out that Bloodsport was his breakout movie. So I got this movie and watched it, and it hit me in every single way. Before I knew it, I was watching what I considered to be one of, if not the greatest Canon Films ever made as well. Now, the history of Canon Films is insane. I've talked about Menahem Golan, how crazy he was, how insane Canon Films is as a company. Those guys were renegades. They were selling movies before they even had scripts. They would make, posters for movies, go to the Cannes Film Festival and sell it, and then they'd be like, okay, well, we got some money. I guess we should write a script and actually see if Charles Bronson will do this movie that we put his face on the poster for. So by the late 80s, things were getting a little rocky, but they were still cranking out classics, and Bloodsport is one of those. And the story of Jean-Claude getting into doing this film is truly a story of a guy committed to becoming one of the greatest action movie stars of all time. So what's so great about Bloodsport is not only the story of Frank Dukes, and whether that story is true or not remains to be seen. There's a lot of special features in here that kind of shed light on that. But Frank Dukes was this guy that apparently was in some underground hidden karate tournament called the Kumite, and it was full contact fight till the near death, and he dubbed it to a friend the Bloodsport, and that ended up becoming the name of the movie when the screenwriter talked to Frank Dukes about this. But this movie has some of the greatest martial arts fight scenes ever, and it has the greatest martial arts villain of all time. He is so intimidating. I'm talking about the legend Balo Young. He is one of the most scary, intimidating guys you'll ever see, and he is so good in Bloodsport. He sets the precedent of what an actual, legitimate, threatening villain should be. The sight of him is intimidation. The less is more kind of approach. All Balo has to do is poke that chest up, walk onto that Kumite mat, and everybody craps their pants. He is such a good villain in this, and Van Damme plays such a good foil because he's able to allow himself to be vulnerable as a hero. He's able to allow himself to be seen as a little bit weak here and there, and that's what ultimately makes Jean-Claude's Frank Dukes in this movie work so well. But one of the greatest things about Bloodsport, which sets it apart from any other karate action film ever, is definitely the Paul Herzog score. It is full of so much emotion, like anything you've ever heard. Then you have Stan Bush's music with his On My Own Alone that you'll hear in the movie when Van Damme's riding the subway in Hong Kong, and it's so much gripping emotion. This film will make you feel all kinds of ways, energized. It'll make you feel sad. It'll make you feel happy. It'll make you just feel all kinds of ways. It's such a film that hits different kinds of emotions, and I love it so much. It is a legendary film. Bloodsport is, in fact, to me, the greatest martial arts film of all time. I adore it. So I wanted to see this movie on 4K, and for the longest time, I kept saying to myself, I'm going to wait. Vinegar Syndrome's going to do it. I just have a feeling. I got sick of waiting. So I finally found some reviews on these, and everyone sounded beyond happy. Now, this was put out by Cape Light, because there's Dutch language on here and there's English language. They put out this, and this is a really cool media book that it feels like an actual book, which is really cool. The backside shows another clip of the fight scene with Balo and Jean-Claude. It is a 4K UHD, and it comes with some really cool pictures, which I'll flip through. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I can't emphasize it enough. And all this is in English, by the way, so you can read this. And it tells the story of the movie, how the movie was filmed in Hong Kong, but it was supposed to be filmed in America. And Jean-Claude didn't even have a valid green card. He overstayed his visa when he was trying to get the role for this movie, so filming it overseas actually saved his butt. But it's a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous book. There's Balo on the back. And that's the Blu-ray. It comes with a Blu-ray, which is in the player just for, cool aesthetic. So the cool thing about this release is when it had the shrink wrap on here, it said compatible with HDR10, HDR10 Plus, and Dolby Vision, which is the first time I've ever seen a release say that. Maybe other releases do in fact allow that, but this was the first time I actually saw it say that. Now I have a PlayStation 5, which I believe is just HDR10, and I also have a Sony actual 4K player, the UXB7-700 or something like that, but that has Dolby Vision. I can tell you guys, just watching this movie on 4K with my PS5 on my 65-inch QLED or OLED, one of the two, I forget. I'm sorry, it's very late at night right now. I've never seen HDR applied to a film and be so noticeably cool before. This really is, I think, one of the absolute best 4Ks I've ever seen. This is definitely one of those beyond 10s, like The Shining, or The Shining is usually the example I go to of one of the best 4Ks I've ever seen. This is a beyond 10 out of 10 4K look. This looked incredible. The HDR application to this was, like, sometimes it's kind of subtle in films, and sometimes, like, it may not be as prominent, being able to see those colors pump, but, like, in this one, it was remarkable. And seeing the filming scenes of inside of the Kumite arena when the two guys are fighting, again, it's like all the data in that image, it's so uncompressed, it's unbelievable. With the lights off real low, you feel like you're in that building where the Kumite is taking place. It looked and sounded incredible. This was, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the best 4Ks, if not the best 4K releases I've ever gotten. And all the special features, I'll show you guys a look at the special features, were insane. Jean-Claude Van Damme gives a great interview telling his story of how he got to be in Bloodsport, how he came to America and all that stuff. I'll save all that. There is an incredible interview with the writer of Bloodsport who tells the truth about how Frank Dukes is kind of a crook who makes up all kinds of stories. Now, Frank Dukes is the guy that Bloodsport is based around, and it's really a fiction movie. As a matter of fact, there was a point where Frank Dukes actually put out a book, and it was pulled from shelves in a week because all the people's that names were mentioned in the book came out and said, I've never heard of this guy, I've never met this guy. He's kind of like a crook. But one of the things that the writer kind of talked about was, despite all that, it doesn't matter. Bloodsport is the movie. It is Jean-Claude's breakout film. I think Frank Dukes would even sue Jean-Claude years later when he did a movie called The Quest, claiming it's basically Bloodsport again or something. It was a whole fiasco with that. But this is one of those movies where the stars align. There is a charm to this movie. Some of the acting in the beginning with little Jean-Claude Van Damme as the little Frank Dukes is a horrible actor. It's a little moment in the film, but it's really funny. But when you see Jean-Claude training for the Kumite and everything, and him in Hong Kong, it is so incredible. There's really cool 80s music in here, but the score is to die for. It's on par with like Rocky IV in terms of a soundtrack. I can't emphasize enough. So this is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of my all-time favorite, if not now, my absolute favorite 4K releases, because it did justice to one of my favorite movies. This release is worth getting, not waiting for a US release. There's nothing you could possibly want more. Everything you could possibly think of in terms of special features, including, like I said, the great Jean-Claude interviewing in this and telling his story completely, is in this release. There's nothing else that you could want besides a giant box that opens up and has all kinds of bells and whistles. If Vinegar Syndrome announces it, will I get it? Probably, because I'm a diehard fan. But if it never happens, I am beyond satisfied with this beautiful release from, I forget the name of the company, Cape Light Pictures. They did a home run. This is one of the best releases I've ever seen. So I love it, guys. It's beautiful. It has binding on it like a book. It actually looks like a book. If you look at it, look, it just looks like a book. But they gave me everything I could possibly want. Please, guys, share your thoughts below on Bloodsport if you've seen it. If not, guys, I literally heed my words. I could not recommend a movie more in my life to show you what kind of movie fan I am than Jean-Claude Van Damme's Bloodsport. One of the greatest Canon films of all time, one of the greatest martial arts films of all time, one of the greatest 80 films of all time. I adore this film, and this release gave me everything I could possibly want. I loved it. So thank you guys for watching this video. Please share your thoughts on Bloodsport down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. See you guys next time. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.